Hi everyone, welcome back to N.O.A the Explorer. I'm Dr. Akuranu, and I am an adult, child, and adolescent psychiatrist, currently doing Locum Tenens psychiatry work. And today we'll continue our discussions talking about contract negotiations for Locum Tenens psychiatry work. If that's interesting to you, keep watching. What is Locum Tenens psychiatry? Locum Tenens psychiatry involves temporary psychiatric practices where psychiatrists fill in for absent or additional staff serving patients in various healthcare settings. As a Locum Tenens psychiatrist, my assignments can vary widely between different settings such as inpatient, outpatient, intensive outpatient programs, partial hospitalization programs. I can work in general psychiatry hospitals, state hospitals, prisons, jails, correctional facilities, and so on and so forth. Lest I forget, you can also do telepsychiatry. And that brings me back to my previous point where I said you actually don't have to travel to be a Locum Tenens psychiatrist. You can do telemedicine from the comfort of your home, and we can get into that as well later. I personally prefer to go in person because ever since the pandemic, I'm all telemedicined out. If I see one more Zoom meeting, I think I'll pull my hair out. For those who like telemedicine, I think it's a great option to sort of dip your toes into the Locum Tenens world and see if you like it. For me right now, I'm at the point in my life where I would rather go in person. Also, in person pays a lot more than telemedicine. It might not seem like a lot, but when you add up how many hours you work, losing $10 or $20, sometimes even $50 more an hour, really does add up. You work 40 hours a week times $50. That's a lot of money. So for me, I would rather go in person. Some states don't pay as much insurance reimbursement for telemedicine work that they would in person. So that's why sometimes telemedicine pays less. Some states do have telemedicine parity laws where they require the insurance company to reimburse the same for telemedicine or in-person work. But in any case, I prefer to go in person because I can troubleshoot any issues I have in real time. I don't have to wait on somebody to do it. I don't have to rely on faulty telemedicine equipment. Sometimes the internet goes out and now you can't work. Because I did do, actually, in the beginning of my Locum Tenens work, I did do some telemedicine. And my God, when the internet is down or the electronic medical record is down, you can't work. And that's it. You just cannot work. So that was very frustrating. What are the key components of a Locum Tenens contract? Locum Tenens agencies tend to have what's called a Physician Services Agreement, which is a PSA. And that's separate from your assignment addendum or assignment agreement. So your basic general contract is called a PSA, Physician Service Agreement, with the Locum Tenens agency. And that just kind of details the general stuff. And then each assignment, you sign what's called an assignment addendum. And that'll be a separate, usually 1 to 2 page document, nothing too extravagant, detailing everything you've agreed on for the assignment, your hotel, your flight, your work, your responsibilities, everything. And you can also negotiate that. You can negotiate the Physician Service Agreement and you can negotiate the assignment agreement. Whenever you get a new assignment, the locums company will say, hey, Dr. Akuranu, here's the assignment details. What do you think? Do you want me to present to you or do you not want me to present to you? So it's up to you to look at the assignment details. And if they look okay to you and fine, then go ahead and be presented. You need to be aware that once you are presented for an assignment through a Locum Tenens staffing company, they technically own your CV from then on. So you really have to be careful allowing yourself to be presented for assignments because once you are presented, whether or not you work that assignment, it doesn't matter. Even if you didn't work there, now you can't ever work there based on your non-compete or the terms of your contract. So some contracts would be a year, some contracts would be 2 years, some contracts would be 3 years. Don't sign a 3-year contract. You really need to be careful when reviewing these assignments and asking to be presented to the assignments, right? So you want to get details. You can always ask questions. You can ask for clarification. And then once they clarify, Then you say, okay, I think I understand what this assignment is asking me to do. Please go ahead and present me, knowing that they're going to present you to that facility. And you need to keep a running list of all the facilities you've been presented to, because let's say you may want to take a permanent position at that place in the future. You might have to wait for your non-compete to expire. You might have to have the hospital buy out your contract from the locums company, if that's the case. Your contract should have an assignment addendum that outlines your assignment duration, your job responsibilities, your compensation, any benefits, if at all, and specific terms and conditions related to that assignment. So you really want clarity because it protects you as a psychiatrist and also protects the healthcare facility. In case there's a dispute in the future, you can always pull up your assignment, and all of this should be done in writing. You can always talk on the phone, but at the end of every phone call, you should get a summary of what was discussed and then agree upon that. If you don't get a summary, you write one yourself. Usually the recruiters that I work with, they're pretty good about every time we get off the phone, they're like, hey, Dr. Akaranu, here's what we discussed. These are the questions you want me to ask the hospital. These are the questions, these are the answers that they've given me. Do you feel like you want to be presented for this job? And this is all done in email. I just redirect people to my email. I would text for like quick things like yes or no, answers. But if it requires more than a sentence, email. I'll just tell the recruiter, hey, I emailed you. Please look at your email. Because for me, that's more professional. And then at least I have the email. I can save it. In case there's confusion in the future, I'll be like, hey, I look back at the email. That's not what we discussed. So again, I prefer to do email. I will hop on a quick phone call to just talk things quickly so that we don't go back and forth in an email. But after every phone call, we will have an email to summarize what we discussed. You can also negotiate your rates. I know sometimes you talk to a recruiter or you talk to a hospital and they tell you that the rates are not negotiable. I negotiate anyways. And the only way to know how much you should be getting paid, like I said, you just have to ask people. You have to ask your colleagues. And I know it's hard. I know it's very difficult, right? Like you don't want to be at work and be like, hey, how much money do you make? Yeah, you don't want to do that. But you also want to ask. You want to be a little bit more tactful, but you also want to ask and use social media to your advantage. I have messaged psychiatrists on social media, individual psychiatrists, and asked them, hi, my name is Nana, and I'm currently a psychiatry resident. If you don't mind sharing with me the details of potential contract negotiations, how much is the minimum to expect if one is to do the job that you're doing? Give me a range, because a lot of us, we can't tell you our salary. Like I said, I have a confidentiality clause on my contract, so I can't tell you my salary, but I can give you a range. I can't tell you this is how much I make, but I can tell you this is the range to expect. Everything is negotiable. They will say no to some things, but they should not say no to all things. If you are looking at a hospital or a facility or a locum tenens agency and they refuse to negotiate anything, I will not sign that contract. I won't. That's just me, because to me, that already starts off on the wrong foot, right? You can't possibly say no to everything. If I say, well, I don't want to sign a 2-year non-compete, can I sign a 1-year non-compete? Or, this non-compete is 15-mile radius and there's multiple hospitals in 15-mile radius. Can we make it 10 miles, 5 miles and make it one specific hospital, one hospital, 5 miles? And they're like, no. Okay. I'm not signing that contract, right? So again, these are things that you want to talk to a contract lawyer, but you also want to talk to other physicians of what's reasonable and what's not reasonable to sign. And you have to be careful because some physicians don't know. And this is really where a contract lawyer comes into play. Please, you need to spend the money and talk to a contract lawyer, because you don't know what's actually enforceable by law and what's not, right? And these hospitals, sometimes these contracts, you look at it, you're like, that doesn't sound legal. But sometimes it might be legal. And the contract lawyer will say, yeah, that's normal. They can do that. You have to know. You also have to know malpractice insurance. Usually the locum tenens agency will provide malpractice. You want the malpractice to be occurrence-based versus claims-made. Again, I'm not a contract lawyer, but typically claims-made malpractice is one that you have while you're doing the work, and then after you're done with the assignment, it ends. And it doesn't cover you through the tail period. And the tail period is a period after you've worked where someone could still potentially bring a lawsuit to you for that work that you did. For example, did I already say I'm not a contract lawyer? I'm not a contract lawyer. Please consult with a contract lawyer, but I'll do my best. Claims-made insurance doesn't cover that. It doesn't give you tail coverage, to cover however long you need tail coverage for. And that's different by state. So you have to look at each state that you're working in and see what's the tail coverage that I need and for how long. Occurrence-based insurance is an insurance where your tail coverage is built in. That means even after you finish the work and you stop working at that hospital, for those years that you need to be covered in case someone decides to sue you, occurrence-based insurance already covers that. Because of that, occurrence-based insurance tends to be more expensive than claims-made insurance. And for claims-made insurance, when the insurance ends, you have to have tail coverage. So you pay separately for tail coverage to cover you for however long you need. Again, please talk to a contract lawyer. They will explain this much better than I ever could. Okay? All right. So that is the legal and liability considerations for locum tenens work to factor in when you decide to do this work. I am going to go ahead and end the video here. Please catch up on the previous videos if you haven't already, and we'll continue our discussion on locum tenens psychiatry in the next video. Thank you so much.